After taking a shower, my best friend sent me a video. Ethan cheated. I smiled. How could that be? He is the man who even gave his life for me. You must be mistaken, the man in the video is not him. BFF Angela sent 3 question marks in a row. I thought for a moment and decided to explain. Ethan is still at the company, and today he is wearing a coffee brown suit. I specifically paired it with an old-fashioned tie for him. The man in the video, although his back looks very much like Ethan's, is wearing a different color outfit. Besides, don't you know him? He has to report everything to me. It's settled, I know what I'm doing. If Ethan dares to cheat, I will disappear, making sure he can never find me for the rest of his life. Angela replied after a long time, alright, as long as you know in your heart. I have to go on a business trip in the next few days, so I won't be spending Christmas with you. After a while, Ethan sent a message, honey, I have to go on a business trip for the next couple of days and can't be with you for Christmas. In the end, Ethan sent another message, honey, didn't you want to go to Hokkaido? You can plan a good trip with your best friend. Ethan's side kept showing that he was typing. I put down the towel in my hand and stared intently at this message. I have never told Ethan that I want to go to Hokkaido. I only mentioned it to Angela. I have known Angela for 10 years. In high school, my parents divorced, and neither of them wanted me. I lost control of my emotions and got into a conflict with a rude male classmate. The onlookers jeered, Sherry, you can't even afford tuition anymore, so why not just go for Ryan? His dad is the principal, and as long as you sweet-talk him a bit, won't your tuition be waived? No need to work day and night to save money, right? What's the use of studying dead books? Your mom loves the rich and hates the poor, what good is your dad's high education? It's better to find a good family to marry into. I was trembling with anger, and Ryan raised an eyebrow with a crooked smile, beckoning me over with a finger, as if he were calling a dog. My feet froze in place, and before I knew it, someone had pushed me, causing me to fall at Ryan's feet. My tongue was bitten by the force of gravity, and blood smeared all over my mouth, looking particularly ridiculous. Laughter and playful banter filled the entire classroom. The sadness of my mother leaving home enveloped me, and I suddenly felt. Just die. The floor isn't high, as long as I fall headfirst, just die. I closed my eyes, my fingers curled, and the sharp pain from my knees crawled up my meridians to my chest. The pain mocked me, suffocating me. Ryan, are you sick? Don't bully girls, will you die? I raised my head and glanced sideways. Slap, Angela gave Ryan a slap. The entire classroom was silent as a pin drop. Angela helped me up and stepped on Ryan's foot as we passed by, warning him, if I see you bully Sherry again, don't blame me for being rude. Indeed, there's always someone better. Ryan was very well behaved from then on, always avoiding me. At that time I asked Angela, aren't you afraid? She smiled and leaned on my shoulder. The Luo family and the Zhang family are prestigious families. If Ryan dares to bully me, the first one to jump out and teach him a lesson will be his father. Later I found out. Ryan couldn't even make a name for himself in the Luo family. The world of the wealthy was something I couldn't understand and didn't want to understand. Because of Angela, her parents funded my high school education. I studied hard and got into my target university. During college, Ethan came to the school to give a speech, and I interviewed him on behalf of the student council. As we interacted more, our relationship became much closer. After hearing about it, Angela insisted that I treat her. She said she wanted to meet my idol. But she is abroad, and it has been left unresolved. When Angela returned to her country, she and Ethan established their relationship. They met briefly and then parted ways. Over the years, we often video chatted. Ethan always joked, in your eyes and in your heart, there is only Angela. Yes. She is more important than Ethan. What if Angela betrays me? At this moment, my heart is in turmoil. The Luo family went bankrupt 2 years ago, and Angela had to terminate her job abroad and return to the country. I once suggested to her to let Ethan help out. She always shook her head. Sherry, I can handle it myself. I don't want to owe Ethan a favor, nor do I want you to be criticized by Ethan because of me in the future. Later, Angela closed her own business and joined Ethan's rival company. Every time they met, they were very disdainful of each other. I was always caught in the middle, feeling torn. Mentioning going to Hokkaido to Angela was also unintentional. They are busy, and I am the only one at home due to illness. I haven't had the chance to bring it up with Ethan yet. Strangely, I changed into a black outfit and took a taxi to Ethan's company. His office was brightly lit. His secretary took the lunchbox from my hands and smiled, saying, "Sister Sherry, you finally came to see brother Ethan. He hasn't eaten a thing all day. At this rate, how can his body handle it?" No matter how we tried to persuade him, it was useless. "Luckily, you came today." I nodded lightly. As we brushed past each other, I saw the silk scarf wrapped around her collar. Hermes orange, vintage print. The woman in the video wore a khaki trench coat, her face hidden in the shadows, but the color of the scarf was strikingly out of place. Just like hers. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively asked, "This silk scarf?" The secretary turned her head and looked at me in surprise. "Sister Sherry, what's wrong? Is it this scarf? It's a gift you gave me before." "Did I give it to you?" "I don't remember at all." I looked at her in confusion, and the secretary covered her mouth and laughed. "Sister Sherry, you really are someone who forgets things easily. 3 years ago, in the month I just started my job, it was my birthday. The silk scarf you gave me, I have treasured it all along, and I just took it out recently." Oh, 3 years ago, I did give her a birthday gift. For some reason, I feel a heaviness in my heart. I always feel like something is not right. As soon as I entered Ethan's office, I finally understood why. A dark blue suit was draped over his office chair. The color was the same as in the video. "Sherry, how did you come here?" I gasped, my whole body frozen in place, unable to move. Ethan noticed something was off with me and touched my forehead with his palm. "Are you feeling unwell?" I stared blankly at his lips, moving. I heard the secretary place the lunchbox on the table, open the box, and stir it with a spoon. I saw her holding the navy blue suit in her arms. She said, "Ethan, I'll take this suit to the dry cleaners. I'll drop it off at Simon's house later." I suddenly felt like a fish that had been stranded in dry water, brought back to life when placed in water. I asked, "Whose suit is this?" The secretary lowered her head, shyly replying, "It's Simon's. He went to discuss business with Mr. Wan today, got drunk, and is resting inside." She pointed to the door behind the desk. Inside was Ethan's lounge. I nodded blankly, feeling a sense of fear for my own wild thoughts. Ethan gestured for the secretary to leave. He embraced me and leaned down to kiss my cheek. "Are you still taking the recent medication? I can see you're not looking very well." "Perhaps. Ever since that incident happened, I've been feeling very lost inside, constantly afraid of losing Ethan. My heart has fallen ill. I suffer repeatedly in torment. 6 months ago, I was kidnapped on my way home from work. A former employee, who I had fired due to a work mistake, was waiting in the garage and took me hostage, attempting to raise the compensation by 20%. I had already given the maximum compensation, enough for him to get through his unemployment period. But he was still not satisfied. Ethan rushed over with the police, his face pale, trembling all over, soaked to the skin. After the police negotiations yielded no results, he knelt and pleaded, "Let her go, and I will not hold you accountable, and I promise to give you 5 million. Time seemed to freeze. The proud Ethan was begging softly in front of everyone. But it backfired, and I didn't know what had provoked the old employee to want to take me down with him. At that moment, I thought, if I die, what will happen to Ethan? He knelt down in front of me. "I promise, after you get the money, there will definitely be no stains left. I will arrange a new job for you or help your whole family go abroad." Ethan's words made the old employee hesitate. But the dagger in his hand drew closer to me. At a critical moment, Ethan suddenly stood up and grabbed the dagger that was pressed against my neck with his bare hands. In a tug and pull, the dagger plunged into Ethan's abdomen. At that time, I thought, what should I do if he dies? Every moment I spent in the hospital in a daze, I prayed that Ethan would not wake up. I must accompany him. Fortunately, he has woken up. But I was traumatized by this incident and diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. So, when Angela told me that Ethan cheated, I was actually shaken. It's ridiculous, I would doubt that a sow could climb a tree, but I shouldn't doubt that Ethan would cheat. This is not only a disrespect to him, but also a lack of trust in myself. Ethan finished work early and drove me back. In the night, under the neon lights, the traffic flowed endlessly. Ethan turned on the evening radio, playing a Hong Kong-style song. Love is joy. It is sadness, it is intoxication, it is emotion. Or it may be regarded as a legend in the future. Love is a covenant. It is habit, it is time, it is white hair. It also makes you and me startle and rejoice. Who still prays for anything? A result that is both moving and lamentable. Who can bear the consequences? The upheaval is not in vain from the very beginning. Ethan hummed all the way, and when we reached the traffic light, he naturally took my hand and kissed it by his lips. The frustration that had been stuck in my chest suddenly dissipated completely. Ethan leaned down and kissed the corner of my mouth. The car behind us honked loudly, he frowned and sighed, starting the engine. His lips were stained with my lipstick. I instinctively opened the passenger mirror, wanting to check my lips. Thud. A lipstick fell into my arms. A buzz echoed in my head. A loose string tightened into a line again. I twisted the lipstick and held it up to examine. Cold tea color. I've never used it before. My skin tone is slightly yellow. Angela said that this color doesn't suit me. On the contrary, this is the color she usually uses. I remained silent, and after a moment of stiffness, Ethan pouted in disgust. This lipstick belongs to Angela. That day during the bidding, she got drunk in the evening, and I drove her for a while. You have no idea, she can't hold her liquor, yet she drinks desperately, and it doesn't matter to her if someone has their hands all over her. She doesn't love herself at all. She even threw up all over my car, disgusting. The Angela in Ethan's words is completely different from the one I have in mind. Angela is cold and aloof. She has been working in galleries abroad. Her family background never required her to accompany drinks. In my heart, she is an otherworldly fairy untouched by the mundane. It can be in Ethan's words. She is greedy, willing to use her own beauty to maneuver among men to achieve her goals. How could that be? She is not disgusting at all. Ethan, I won't allow you to say that about her. Ethan was startled by me. He wiped away the tears from the corner of my eye with one hand and sighed softly, Sherry, don't be so naive. The reality is as cruel as Angela is fallen. If she wants to revive the Luo family, it will undoubtedly be a difficult road. I am merely stating the facts. Ethan's calm demeanor suddenly made me feel annoyed. I blurted out in response, what about me? What about the me I met in the private room back then? Am I also willingly falling into depravity? Did the relationship with Ethan begin with his pity? Sherry, you are different, you are pure. Ethan, please don't say anything, don't make me hate you, okay? I closed my eyes, tightly gripping Angela's lipstick. A man who loathed her to the core. And a woman who exposed his infidelity. Will the two people have an affair? The confusion in my heart is like the fog in the night, as if trapped in an endless cycle. After getting home, Angela sent a message, just landed, reporting in. I let out a breath. At the same time, Ethan's phone vibrated. I glanced over and saw it was an unknown number. Ethan raised an eyebrow in mockery, junk message. He casually tossed his phone onto the sofa and went to the bathroom. It was like a signal. An indescribable sense of anxiety spread in my heart. I had never checked Ethan's phone. I had also scorned the despicable act of checking someone else's phone. But now, I have become the person I once despised. I tremble as I enter the password. It is still my birthday. I take a deep breath and quickly open the message. Deleted. The information is completely gone. Ethan doesn't like red dots, any junk message will be deleted immediately. I opened the chat app. Without exception, the nicknames saved on my phone are all people I know. I breathed a sigh of relief. I pressed the phone against my chest. I opened the search interface again and continuously typed in miss you, love you, good night, and so on. Nothing. The phone was completely clean. Sherry, what happened to you? I asked myself. When did you become a pitiful woman, twisted and indecisive? I cried uncontrollably. Sherry? Ethan ran out barefoot, wrapped in a towel. The foam from his hair flew around, scattering on my head, bursting into water and dripping onto the carpet. He pulled me into his arms. What's wrong? What's wrong? I shook my head and buried myself in his chest, brewing for a while, and finally mustered the courage to ask, Ethan, will you cheat? How could that be? I looked at him without missing a beat. His unthinking response made me laugh through my tears. If I cheat, I'll get hit by a car when I go out. Don't say it. I believe you, Ethan. Suspicion is endless. I kissed Ethan, drawing warmth from him, sinking into the darkness. Ethan responded with a more passionate kiss. All that remained was the sound of our breathing. Sherry. Admit it. You can't afford to lose. The next morning, Ethan packed his luggage for the business trip. I wrapped myself in a blanket, watching him methodically gather his things, while the first snow of the year began to fall outside. Ethan looked at the snow and apologized to me. I beckoned with my hand and tapped my forehead. He immediately cradled my face. Our eyes met, and we saw the image of lovers in each other's gaze. Wait for me to come back. I responded dully, watching his figure fade away. The temperature on the bed suddenly became terrifyingly cold. I got up and stood by the window for a long time. I opened my phone and booked a flight ticket to Deep City. Before setting out, I called Ethan's secretary. She was taken aback for a moment, then began to report Ethan's whereabouts to me. Ethan will be in the port city for about 3 days. After 3 days, he will go to the coastal city. Sherry, specific matters. I interrupted her, no need. I have nothing going on, it's just that he left a document at home. Can you see if there's a way to get it to him? The secretary paused for a few seconds. Okay, Sherry, I'm driving over now. As soon as I get the documents, I'll catch the next flight over. A loud bang came from the other side. The phone was still on the line. Didn't Ethan say he would go to Benhai City after Deep City? When did he change his plans to go to Port City? As for the boss's matters, who knows? Anyway, he told me that if Sherry asks, just say it like this. You also know that ever since the incident, Sherry has been paranoid. Mr. Chen is also doing this for her own good. I listened silently. My heart was in turmoil. This phone call was unintentional. Yet it seemed to confirm that Ethan was hiding something from me. The secretary arrived quickly, took the documents, and headed straight to the airport without any pleasantries. Ethan's secretary and I landed in Deep City one after the other. She took a cab straight to the hotel. After arriving in the lobby, I hid around the corner of the sofa. Ethan, wearing glasses, flipped through the documents in the secretary's hands, his eyes clouded. He looked up and glanced around. He quietly scolded the secretary a few times and turned away without mercy. This document. It was just a bidding document he had left at home before, long since abandoned. Perhaps Ethan sensed something. I waited silently until the phone rang. It was the secretary who called. She held her temper and asked me, Sherry, are you home? Yes, what's up? Nothing, I just delivered the documents. I responded with an "oh." The call was hung up on the other end. I opened the surveillance at home, and the camera had indeed been moved, sliding from the room to the living room. In the living room, I was snuggled up on the sofa in my thick loungewear, binge-watching a show. It was an old series that Ethan had helped me download. It lasted for about 5 minutes, and then the camera slid again, stopping in the yard. It's hard to describe the feeling. Faced with the truth that was about to be revealed, fear and excitement intertwined. Angela once told me that once a man loses control, he should be thrown away like a rag, without getting your hands dirty with his stickiness. I feel deeply about this. I'm also glad that I had the foresight to record a video before going out and put it in the surveillance system in advance. I showed the marriage certificate to the hotel front desk. I received Ethan's room number, at the end of the hotel corridor. Tick-tock, the door opened. The room was dimly lit. A figure stood by the sofa. Sister-in-law? The familiar voice left me momentarily confused. What brings you here? The other party asked in astonishment. It was Ethan's cousin, Simon. In an instant, the courage I had built up fell to the ground, and I took a small step back. Simon unconsciously raised his hand, covering his mouth as he coughed lightly. He asked me again, Sister-in-law, does your brother know you're here? I fell silent on the spot. Perhaps he already knew. I sniffed and calmly stepped through the door. This was a suite, inside was a room, and outside was a sofa. On the coffee table were 2 glasses of red wine and a scattered towel. I pulled back the curtains and glanced outside. The sunlight streamed through the glass, illuminating Simon's face. I saw his lips twitching and trembling. Sister-in-law, what are you looking for? I didn't say anything and stared at the bathroom behind him. He was blocking it tightly. Simon, move aside. I silently counted to 3 in my heart, my throat felt tightly blocked. I wanted Simon to block it, so that I wouldn't have to face the awful Ethan. But she also wanted him to get lost, numbly lying to herself. Simon shifted his steps, making way, a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. Sister-in-law, you're not off your meds, going crazy here, are you? I tightly grasped the bathroom doorknob with my right hand. After turning it, no one was there. A smug smile crawled across Simon's face. Then, a sound came from the suite, as if someone was cursing. The smile on Simon's face instantly froze. Who is inside? I asked. He avoided my gaze, clicked his tongue, and personally turned the door of the suite and pushed it open. Then, with a suppressed laugh and a teasing gaze, he said, "You can see for yourself." I immediately froze in place, as several pairs of eyes in the suite were fixed on me. Some were serious, some were amused, and some were wide-eyed in shock. Ethan sat in the center. He stood up with a blank expression and gestured for everyone to wait a moment. Just handling some family matters, I'll be back soon. I followed Ethan into the hotel corridor, and he lit a cigarette. Amidst the swirling smoke, he suddenly let out a low, deep laugh. Sherry. What are you thinking? His light-hearted question seemed to mock my childishness. I scanned from his leather shoes up to his chest, then to his meticulously styled hair. Why don't you speak? Ethan stubbed out his cigarette and growled. What could I say? That I was checking up on him, or that I missed him, trying to cover it up? Or question him? Clearly half an hour ago, his hair fell naturally, full of youthful spirit. Instead of now, looking down from a height, seemingly in the posture of someone in power. But then, the exquisite suit jacket is paired with a vest in the wrong color and an inappropriate tie? Once the seeds of doubt take root and sprout, only then do we realize the traces of his web of lies. Who is she? Ethan furrowed his brow slightly, returning to how he used to be, patiently talking to me. No one. Lying. Sherry, I have nothing to lie about, you have to believe in yourself, I only have you in my heart. I'm not a child anymore, how could I fall in love with someone else? Ethan spoke earnestly, tentatively pulling me into his embrace. Sherry, don't overthink it. I've been busy lately, you should go home first, and I'll be back in a couple of days. I buried my head in his shoulder, thinking over and over again, and Simon poked his head out, then shrank back in. Behind him, another person emerged, mouthing the words, "Idiot." It was Ryan, his presence too. Doesn't that mean I was indeed overthinking things? Ethan comforted me for a moment and then returned to the room. Simon volunteered to take me to the airport. Ryan followed closely behind, his presence bringing back the shadows of my high school days. I felt a surge of resistance and fled in panic. Simon chased for a while before stopping, calling Ryan to go play somewhere else. Ryan loudly refused, saying he wanted to hang out with his stupid old friends. "The elevator is taking a long time to arrive." Ryan walked up to my side. "Sherry, after all these years, how are you still so stupid? Stupid enough that your husband sleeps with someone else, and you don't dare to expose it." I stepped back a few paces, unwilling to engage, and the elevator finally arrived. I couldn't wait. But obviously Ryan didn't want to let me go. He yanked my hair back and dragged me all the way to the top floor of the hotel. As we passed Ethan's room, I kicked the door with my foot, but received no response. "Sherry, it's fate that we meet today, let's talk." "Ryan, there's nothing for us to discuss, you'd better let me go, otherwise." "Otherwise what?" "Otherwise, let Angela teach me a lesson?" Haha. What a huge joke, she's busy enjoying herself with men now, isn't she? Ryan's wicked interests flourished as he cornered me against the wall, tearing open my clothes and looking down at me. "Do you know how cheap Angela is? She just loves sleeping with men, especially wealthy and powerful ones, particularly those who look down on her. The more they fawn over her, the less she likes them." I don't know what nonsense Ryan is talking about. The grudge formed 10 years ago still weighs heavily on his mind. I struggled for a while, but couldn't budge an inch. Ryan was full of crude remarks, belittling Angela at every turn. Looking at his vile mouth, unable to bear it any longer, I slapped him with my palm. He was extremely angry, covering his mouth with a cold smile. "Sherry, you really won't give up until you reach the Yellow River." He took out his phone and played a video for me. In the footage, Angela, dressed in a khaki trench coat, was hanging on Ethan, her cheeks flushed and squinting at him. She lay back in the passenger seat, gripping Ethan's tie and pulling it down. Just a few minutes. It felt like a year for each day. They kissed, took off their clothes, unbuckled their belts, and moaned deeply to each other, reaching ecstasy. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe steadily, but felt my lungs entangled by countless threads, tightening again and again until there was no breath left. It hurt a lot. "Did you see clearly?" A terrifying light shone in Ryan's eyes, as if he were a judge, condemning my love and friendship. "Is it dirty or cheap?" He looked at me excitedly and seduced me further. "They are in the bathroom of the room downstairs. We are all just decoys brought here by Ethan 30 minutes ago. What kind of meeting is worth holding in a room? It's just that they fear Ethan's methods. You have no idea, Sherry, we heard your conversation with Simon loud and clear. Since they betrayed you, don't you want to take revenge? Right here on this rooftop, give yourself to me. What Ethan can do, you can do too, can't you? Sherry, what are you still hesitating about?" Ryan is getting impatient, and he is pressing closer. I bent my leg and kicked him in the lower body, and while he was in excruciating pain, I slammed him down with a powerful shoulder throw. I used all the strength I had in my life. Ryan crawled on the ground, gritting his teeth and cursing me, "Sherry, you bitch." I loosened my legs and kicked him again at the base of his thigh. Since the kidnapping incident, whenever I had nothing to do, I secretly enrolled in a kickboxing class. I didn't want to be powerless again, nor did I want Ethan to get hurt because of me. But unexpectedly, it was the first time I used it on Ryan. I squatted down and asked him, "When was this video taken?" He twisted on the ground, refusing to speak, so I slapped him twice. "The 17th. What month?" "November." The wind on the rooftop was especially strong. I understood and sat down. "The time in the video Angela sent me is also November 17th. How did you shoot the video?" Ryan bit his lip hard. I have followed her. After the Luo family went bankrupt, she begged everyone, but why didn't she beg me? What's wrong with me, Ryan? In the past, she was the young lady of the Luo family, and I was unworthy of her. What is she now? She can sleep with others, so why can't she sleep with me? If she were pure and innocent, I might think higher of her. But she's cheap. Sherry, I am just standing up for you. Ryan is like a rat in a gutter. When his desires are not satisfied, he wants to destroy everything in various ways. I don't really understand their circle. But Angela's betrayal can only be avenged by me. What right does he have to denounce it for me? Everyone seems to treat me like a fool. Since I can't escape it, I might as well face it bravely. To catch someone in the act, it always takes two. The room card in my hand was taken by Simon, so I had no choice but to call the front desk for room service. The hotel staff arrived quickly. A fruit platter and a pair of slippers. I walked over and stopped her. Hello, it was me who called earlier for the items, please give them to me. With one hand holding the tray and the other holding the slippers, I awkwardly said, it's inconvenient for me to swipe my card, could you please help me with that? Beep. The door opened. The furnishings inside remained unchanged, the wine glass still on the coffee table. There was an extra bath towel on the sofa. I gently placed the fruit plate on the sofa, then took off my shoes and walked barefoot to the bathroom. It was damp inside, clearly someone had taken a shower. I scanned the traces one by one, and my phone vibrated. It was a message from Ethan. Honey, when you get home, let me know you're safe. Love you. His love can be easily spoken of, but where is his body? The silence inside the room was terrifying. The muffled sounds reflecting in the suite were very loud. I squatted at the door of the suite, waiting for some kind of verdict, a judgment that would strike me fiercely from the person beside my pillow and the most important person in my life. After today, shall we end our relationship? Angela's voice, tinged with postcoital hoarseness. All right, as you wish. Ethan replied to her. I can even imagine the kind of nonchalant control he had when he responded. Ethan, if you hate me so much, why are you willing to do this with me? Angela asked again, but her tone was very casual, as if it were just an everyday matter. After a while, I heard the sound of a lighter, and Ethan asked her, do you smoke? I am an adult male, and your body is very tempting to me. Perhaps I should say, you are like a different person from before, whether it's the cold or the madness, I want to try both. Angela's voice was cold as she continued to ask, Ethan, do you love Sherry? Love. His answer was certain, yet it was a slow death for me. I numbly tugged at the corners of my mouth. The sound of voices intersecting came again from the room. Angela gasped for breath. Ethan, you're really despicable. Angela, you're even more despicable than I am. They cursed each other, and after half an hour of fierce fighting, they returned to calm. I gave them 10 minutes to calm down. Adults do need dignity, indeed. Not their dignity, but my own. I don't want to dirty my eyes. I pushed the door open with mixed emotions. Angela was putting on stockings, bending over, her wrist exposed with a string of beads I had asked for at the temple. At that time, something happened to the Luo family, and I was afraid she would be in a bad mood, so I went to the temple to pray for a safety talisman for her and personally made a string of beads. With all my heart and eyes, I asked the deity to bless it. Little did I know, it was like this. She looked at me in shock, her face filled with guilt and panic. The two people I trusted the most taught me not to believe in anyone anymore. She forced a smile that was uglier than crying. Sherry. I nodded. Ethan, in that moment, seemed struck by lightning. Sherry? He came to his senses, whispering my name. The whole day's thirst had drained all my strength. I brushed aside the shirt on the chair and slowly sat down. Who will speak first? I faced it calmly. Sherry, don't be like this, are you going to hit me? Angela held my hand and kept rubbing it. So Ethan, what do you say? He straightened up and said casually, "We just ended our relationship. It will never happen again." The two of them were in complete agreement, avoiding the topic. Even though I knew everything, they were unwilling to provide even a little more explanation. "Sherry, don't worry, my relationship with Ethan is not what you imagine. There is no love between us?" "So what?" I retorted. "Don't say that Ethan loves my soul and loves you physically? Have you both opened up to this extent?" "Angela, why is it Ethan? Were you pleased when you sent me the video?" "What video?" Ethan's movements of getting dressed suddenly froze, and his gaze was firmly locked onto me. Angela trembled as she pulled me again and again, her eyes filled with tears, unable to speak through her sobs. "Do you love him?" "It's not really love." "Then why sleep with him?" She lowered her head and pondered for a moment. "Because I'm tired, because I'm lonely. I want to relieve the pressure, I feel suffocated every day." So, she and Ethan hit it off perfectly, doing everything a couple does? Then she tells me that there is no love between them. It's just physical attraction. "I sent you the video because I want to end my relationship with Ethan. I've realized that I've become addicted to our affair. Every time, I suffer immensely, and it's unfair to you. I need to cut it off, but deep down, I can't bear it. So I want to get your attention, and as long as you notice me, I will restrain myself. Today is really the last time." Angela's explanation undoubtedly struck me. She used to say that feelings that are easily corrupted are those abandoned after weighing the pros and cons. They chose to abandon me without hesitation. No one empathizes with my suffering. I haven't hysterically made a scene. In these 27 years, I have lost many things: family, friendship, and love. I had imagined how I would react if Ethan betrayed me. But I never considered how I would react if Angela betrayed me. Suddenly, I felt frustrated. Numbly turning around, I walked out of the room, took the elevator down, and exited the hotel. Angela and Ethan wrapped me in between them, calling my name over and over. My ears buzz, the city turns into white mist before my eyes, and I tread on soft clouds. A warm current flows in my nostrils, and I fall into a dream. In the dark forest, the leaves of the trees danced in the wind. I raised my hand to shield my eyes, lost my direction, and found it difficult to move an inch. The corner of the skirt was gently tugged by a chubby little hand, and a child looked up at me and smiled. "Mom." I couldn't see her face clearly, but I could see a small mole on the tip of her nose. I bent down and patted her head. "Little one, you've mistaken me for someone else, I'm not your mother." She stubbornly looked up and pointed in another direction. "You are my mom, don't you want me?" I helplessly looked at her, shook my head, and emphasized again, "I am not your mother." She suddenly laughed heartily. "Mom, it's okay. I don't blame you for not wanting me. Mom, let me take you out." She persistently held my hand and led me deep into the forest. Ahead was a gravestone, a lamp swaying unsteadily in the wind. The child clapped their hands and circled around the tombstone, laughing as they disappeared into thin air. I walked closer, staring blankly at the name on the tombstone. "Son of Sherry." My heart skipped a beat, gradually turning into excruciating pain. That kind of pain is indescribable, with no place to vent it. One feels that every part of the body, from the scalp to the toes, every bone is being slowly crushed by a giant stone, to the point of near fainting. I suddenly sat up. There were many voices around me, both male and female. I even heard Ethan pleading, "Doctor, is there really no way to save the child? Please think of another way, okay?" I slowly opened my eyes, my nose feeling sore and dry. I opened my mouth to stop Ethan. "You should go out, I don't want to see you." He habitually tapped my forehead, and I turned away. The touch of his body made me feel extremely nauseous. "Ethan, don't touch me. I want to throw up." His hand paused in midair, and after a long while, he said okay. The doctor diagnosed me with an intrauterine early pregnancy, but it ended in miscarriage due to excessive fatigue. After the surgery, Angela came by every day. She also went to the temple to pray for a safety talisman for me and strung a bead bracelet, wanting to put it on my wrist, but I avoided her. I didn't curse her, I just didn't want to say a word. In my phone, I have deleted all the messages between Ethan and me. The chasm between us is growing wider. The suspicion and fear that accompanied those days began to dissipate. When I was discharged from the hospital, Ethan and Angela rushed to see me off. I dodged their pursuit and hailed a car. Bang, a violent collision. A van lost control and crashed into me. Angela timely fell on me, her right leg trapped under the wheel. Ethan lunged at my left side, shards of glass embedded in his shoulder and neck. I was covered in blood. But it wasn't my blood. I was sent to the hospital again, and I heard the doctor say, "What a lucky life, to come out of such a car accident unscathed." Her companion is not doing well, still in the emergency room, with life and death uncertain. There is also a man, who is now in a coma, and I don't know what the relationship is between these three people. Upon hearing this, I fell silent for a moment. The doctor said I need to be observed a little longer, waiting for a brain scan report. Then someone asked me for the identity of the injured person and the contact information of their family. I found Angela's parents' phone number. I also got through to Ethan's father's phone. Angela's parents arrived quickly, while Ethan's father merely coldly asked me to take good care of him. Before I could even say that Ethan and I were about to get a divorce, the call ended. Ethan's original family was no happier than mine. After his mother passed away, his father remarried, and their emotional distance has left them out of contact for a long time. He is independent and has succeeded in his business. He said I am like him, like a wild grass, growing vigorously in the fields. As long as there is enough sunlight, I will thrive in the wind. We support each other's lives and become each other's strength. Yet, it is also in this harsh winter season that we succumb to life. I sat outside the operating room when Simon hurried over. His gaze wandered, stopping a meter away from me, and he called out, "Sister-in-law." I stood up and handed him Ethan's list. "Simon, don't call me sister-in-law anymore." I returned to the ward, and the doctor said everything in my brain was normal, once again marveling at my good fortune. I lowered my head slightly and asked, "How is that lady?" The doctor did not give a definite answer, only saying it was not ideal. I completed the discharge procedures and checked into a hotel near the hospital. After 8 hours of rescue, Angela was admitted to the intensive care unit. I ordered a meal and had it delivered to the hospital for Angela's parents. The two elderly people, already weathered by bankruptcy, had faces that were further etched with deep lines. Mother Luo was particularly heartbroken. Seeing me, her eyes were filled with hatred. She raised her hand and slapped me. "You cursed star, if anything happens to my Angela, I won't let you off." Mother Luo's curses still echoed in my ears. When I used to stay at the Luo family, because of Angela, she would show me a bit of kindness. But she only knew part of the story, which was that Angela was hit by a car while trying to save me. She didn't care at all why her daughter was willing to sacrifice her life for me. Just like that night after graduation from high school. Angela and I made a pinky promise, she will never betray me and will always be Sherry's strong support. Otherwise, I'll be hit by a car. Indeed, vows should not be made lightly. You see, this just proves it. I tilted my head and smiled. Mother Luo was extremely angry and wanted to raise her hand to hit him, but Father Luo stopped her. Gratitude is like sugar, betrayal is like poison. No one can understand my torment. A week later, Angela was finally transferred from the intensive care unit to a regular ward. However, her right leg had been amputated, but at least her life was saved. Ethan also woke up, but due to an injury to his shoulder and neck, he had lost his voice. Before deciding to go back, I came to Angela's hospital room. She was staring blankly at the ceiling. When she saw me, she became emotional and cried. "Sherry, you forgive me, right?" I sat on the sofa, shaking my head indifferently. She crawled to the foot of the bed, dragging one leg, pleading with me, "Sherry, I would be really happy if you would come see me." My dad said that when I was not awake, you would come see me every day. You must have forgiven me, right? Her plea almost moved my heart. Angela, 10 years ago, you saved me. 10 years later, you betrayed me. I could erase our 10 years of friendship in one stroke, but what you did, I will never forgive. Today's farewell, I hope you will not appear before me again. Goodbye. The entanglement between the three of us ends here. As I was about to leave the hospital, Luo's mother caught up with me. In a mother's role, she pleaded with me, Sherry, can you please not leave just yet? Angela is refusing to cooperate with her treatment. She says she can't bear to live in this world. She won't eat, she won't take her medicine, she's suffering so much right now. Aunt, please, can you forgive her? I already know what she has done. She has been punished, isn't that enough? You only lost a man, but our family Angela has already lost a leg, that price is high enough. Once upon a time Angela was so good to you. Even though she was far abroad, she was always thinking about your college life. She bought you the trendiest clothes, and she thought of everything for you. I listened in silence. I heard her talk about the wonderful things that had happened between Angela and me over the past 10 years. Once upon a time, it was beautiful, but now it feels like two different people. I am trapped in memories, filled with melancholy, and only when I awaken do I realize that I have been changing all along. From weakness to strength, I no longer need anyone's support, I can still live well on my own. I brushed away Aunt Luo's hand. Uncle and Aunt, forgive me for my inability, but from the day Angela and Ethan got into bed together, she lost me. Moreover, what I lost was not a man, but a life that should have stayed well in my womb. So, do you think Angela is innocent? Now her life and death have nothing to do with me. I boarded the plane back to Hangzhou, and after landing, I contacted a lawyer to divide the assets. The divorce agreement was drafted quickly. Ethan and I have no children and no parents. I sent a copy of the agreement to Ethan in Deep City, but fearing there might be a mistake, I still kept a copy on the bedside table. I cleared away all the traces I had left behind. The house suddenly felt much colder. Then I went to Hokkaido, where I stayed for a few days in a rather dull manner. It wasn't as fun as I had imagined. When I returned, the lawyer called me and said that Ethan wanted me to go back to our former home before he would sign. The lawyer sounded helpless on the phone. Ethan is very persistent. Miss Sherry, if you want to get the procedures done quickly, it's better to go along with him for now. However, his emotions are often unstable at the moment, and if necessary, you can bring your family along. After hanging up the phone, my phone intercepted quite a few messages, probably due to Ethan's unwillingness to accept it. Every message must include a sentence, I love you, my wife. He says he can't live without me. He has always believed that love and the physical body are separate, that a soul connection is true love. He doesn't find it ridiculous, the same thing every day. To quickly resolve the divorce issue, I hired a bodyguard. When we arrived at the lawyer's office, Ethan hoarsely questioned me, Sherry, who is he? His questioning was justified, and after receiving no response from me, his face turned bright red. I don't know what he's thinking, suddenly bursting into laughter, talking to himself, I get it, Sherry, you're getting back at me, right? It's okay, I won't be angry. It doesn't matter if you are with many men. As long as you come home on time every day, I know you love me, right? Ethan's crazy talk made everyone present feel extremely awkward. I held back my temper and negotiated for a long time before he finally signed. After he signed, I immediately slapped him. He touched his cheek and said that he loved him, which was why he would hit him. I was speechless. After getting the documents, I finally breathed a sigh of relief and bought a plane ticket to another city. I spent 3 leisurely months and then received a strange phone call. It was from Angela. She said she was getting married. Although I was stunned, I still said congratulations before hanging up the phone. A few days later, Ryan called me. He was drunk and didn't know where he got my contact information from. He said Angela is getting married, and even a cripple wouldn't look at him. He said he wants to take revenge for me, and he plans to crash Angela's wedding. I turned on the speaker and placed it on the table, catching bits and pieces, but in the end, I figured out that Angela's fiancé is Ethan. No wonder I haven't received any spam messages since last month. After I left, Angela, feeling disheartened, quit her job and stayed at home, constantly blaming herself. Seeing the Luo family rise again, Father Luo tried to leverage Angela's previous connections, but to no avail. He set his sights on Ethan. With Mother Luo's relentless interference, even threatening to jump off a building in a suicide attempt, Angela and Ethan were forced to marry. Thus, this farce was set in stone. I plan to settle in Cloud City, so I need to return to Hangzhou to handle the household registration, and I need Ethan to provide the original household registration book. I went to their new home together. The living room was filled with wine bottles, and Angela sat dejectedly in her wheelchair, shouting at Ethan. In one corner of the living room, there was a huge wedding photo, with two people standing side by side, seemingly together yet emotionally distant. Ethan took off his glasses and shouted back at her, "Shut up." The nanny stood with me at the door, unable to enter or leave, so I could only awkwardly smile. "Mr. and Mrs. don't usually act like this." I returned a forced smile. It was none of my business, and I didn't want to hear more. Ethan and Angela saw me and both stopped. Angela looked embarrassed. She raised her hand to brush her bangs, revealing the beads on her wrist. I explained my purpose, and Ethan got up to fetch the household registration book for me. When he handed it to me, he held it tightly. "Sherry, how have you been lately?" I nodded, indicating that it was much better than their chaotic marriage. The mess of the Luo family cost Ethan a lot of money. I don't know how Ethan found out that Ryan had been entangled with me, but he is making things extremely difficult for the Zhang family. I also heard that Ethan has a secretary outside who looks like me, which disgusts me greatly. In the end, I don't want to mention it anymore. As I stepped out of their home, I walked lightly. There are too many unexpected events in this world, and how many means of revenge does reality really have? Being able to exit an unsuitable marriage is the best way to love yourself. Let go like the wind.